The market was crowded that day, packed with stalls, smoke, and noise. Merchants shouted in strange alien languages, selling everything from shiny tools to squirming animals. But then, through the chaos, a sharp cry cut through the air. A child's voice, high, panicked, and desperate. "Please, somebody help my mom, she won't stop shaking." The voice didn't fit in this cruel place. Most of the aliens ignored it, turning their heads away. Some hissed in disgust, others muttered, "Cursed, stay away from them." Drake Lawson, a human engineer wandering the market for spare parts, stopped. His ear caught the desperation. Humans were rare on this planet, and most kept their heads down. But something in that child's voice, it pulled at him. He pushed through the crowd. Following the sound, at the center of a widening circle, he saw them, a small alien child. Their skin a soft green with faint shimmering scales. They were clutching their mother's arm, but the mother, she was worse than Drake expected. Her entire body was shaking uncontrollably. Her legs twitched, her arms spasmed. Her eyes rolled back but blinked rapidly. She wasn't just sick, she looked like she was being electrocuted without wires. The child sobbed, "Please, please help her, someone." But no one moved. Instead, the aliens muttered among themselves, "She's cursed. She touched the deep mines. She's doomed. Let them die, or we'll catch it too." Drake clenched his fists. He knew fear when he saw it, but he also knew tech, and this didn't look like a curse. It looked like a malfunction. Something inside her body was broken. Was it cybernetics? An implant gone wrong? He had to know. He stepped forward. The crowd gasped. A gray-skinned merchant snarled, "Don't touch her, human. You'll bring the curse." Drake ignored them. He crouched before the trembling woman, examining her, her eyes cloudy but aware fixed on him. Her lips trembled, trying to form words, but no sound came. The child grabbed Drake's sleeve, eyes wet. "You're human. Please, humans can fix things, right? Please fix her." Drake glanced at the child, then at the mother. He could walk away, like the others. It wasn't his business, but that wasn't how he was built. "All right, kid," Drake said, his voice low. "I'll help her." The crowd exploded in shouts. "Fool! Human idiot! Let them die!" But Drake was already lifting the woman. She was lighter than he expected, her body twitching against his arms. The child followed closely, wiping tears. Drake knew he didn't have much time. If this was a neural collapse, she wouldn't last long. He carried her carefully, making his way back to the market's edge. But then, a loud voice echoed, "Stop!" Alien guards, tall, armored, with glowing staves, blocked his path. One pointed a clawed finger. "You have taken the cursed. That is forbidden." Drake swallowed. "I'm taking her to my workshop. I can fix her." "No one fixes they cursed," the guard growled. "Release her or face exile." Drake stood firm. His heart raced. But he had made his choice. "No," he said. "I'm not letting her die here." For a tense moment, it seemed the guards would attack, but then their leader chuckled darkly. "Fine, human. Carry your death with you." They stepped aside. But Drake knew it wasn't over. They'd follow watch. And if he failed, they'd punish him. He hurried back to his small, hidden workshop on the edge of the city. The place was a mess of wires, old human tech, tools scavenged from wrecks. He placed the trembling woman on the workbench. The child clung to his side. "Can you really help her?" They whispered. Drake sighed, wiping sweat from his brow. "I don't know yet, but I'll try." He connected a scanner to her neck. Reading her neural signals, what he saw on the screen made him frown. Strange, unfamiliar data spikes ran through her system. This wasn't natural sickness. It looked like a forced feedback loop, like someone had hijacked her nerves and left her in an endless cycle. "Someone did this to her," he muttered. The child's eyes widened. "What does that mean?" "It means this wasn't an accident," Drake replied. "Someone made her this way." A heavy knock suddenly echoed through the walls. The child gasped. Drake tensed. "They're here already," he whispered. "The guards, or maybe worse, bounty hunters." They were coming. Drake grabbed his toolkit and a few weapons. He turned to the child. "Listen to me. What's your name?" "Veshi," the child said, voice shaking. "All right, Veshi, we're leaving," Drake said. "I'm not letting them take your mom." He lifted the woman again. Her body still shook, but her eyes fluttered open. Just for a second, she saw. Drake saw Veshi, and a tear slid down her cheek. Drake carried her into the hidden tunnels beneath a shop. Veshi followed close, holding onto Drake's coat. They didn't know where the tunnels would lead, but Drake promised himself he wasn't going to let her die. Not when he was the only human lifeline she had left. The tunnels were dark, filled with the smell of rust and damp air. Drake's boots splashed through shallow puddles as he carried the trembling alien mother in his arms. Veshi, the small alien child, walked close behind, barely breathing. They didn't speak. Every sound echoed like a warning that something was following them. When they finally reached an old maintenance chamber, Drake kicked the door closed behind them. This was an old human shelter abandoned decades ago. Dust coated everything, but the walls were strong. It was safe, for now. Drake gently laid the alien woman on a padded bench. She was still shaking, her body jerking like her nerves were being electrocuted from the inside. Veshi knelt beside her, whispering in their alien tongue, eyes full of fear. Drake powered up. A generator, the lights flickering on. "Okay," he muttered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." He pulled out a human neural scanner, old, but still working. He attached small sensors to the woman's temples. Lines of data began scrolling across the dusty screen. Drake's eyes narrowed. This wasn't illness. Her nervous system was hijacked, overloaded by an artificial signal. It was as if her brain was caught in a loop she couldn't break. But worse, there was a faint signature embedded deep inside the signal. A pattern, a code, somebody had done this to her on purpose. Veshi's voice broke the silence. "Is she dying?" Drake looked at them. "Not yet. But if I don't fix this soon, her body will give out." "Why is she like this?" Veshi asked, wiping tears. Drake hesitated. "Tell me what happened to her, kid. Everything." Veshi swallowed hard, sitting close to their mother's side. "She worked in the deep mines." Veshi whispered. "Miners said she was strong. She worked longer shifts than others. But one day, she didn't come home. I waited, and then they brought her back like this, shaking, eyes blank." "Did she have any implants? Tech in her body?" Drake asked. Veshi shook their head. "I don't think so. But the mine boss." He laughed. "He said she was just another broken tool." Drake's jaw tightened. He had seen this before in war zones, where soldiers were turned into puppets with tech that hijacked the nervous system. But this was worse. This wasn't for war. This was to control. To enslave. "She's not sick," Drake said quietly. "She's infected with a neural virus. Someone planted it inside her." Veshi's eyes widened. "You can remove it?" "Maybe," Drake said. "But I need a special stabilizer to keep her body alive while I flush the signal out. Without it, she might die from shock." Suddenly, a loud boom echoed from above. Dust rained from the ceiling. Veshi grabbed Drake's arm. "They found us." Drake cursed under his breath. They had no time. "Stay with her. Don't open the door for anyone but me," he told Veshi, handing them a small shock weapon. "It's not much, but if anyone comes through that door, you use it." Veshi nodded bravely, though their hands trembled. Drake packed his tools and slipped into a side tunnel, one that led to the lower market. The black market, the only place where a human could find rare tech if he didn't get killed first. The black market was chaos, a twisted place of flickering neon lights, smoke and shadows. Creatures from across the galaxy traded illegal tech, weapons, and things that should never exist. Drake kept his hood low, eyes sharp. He found the dealer he needed, an ancient alien with glassy eyes and too many arms. The dealer hissed, "Human. Not many of your kind here." "I need a neural stabilizer," Drake said. "Type 7, if you have it." The dealer's eyes gleamed. "Dangerous tech, human. Expensive." "I have credits." Drake replied. But as he placed his payment, another voice sneered behind him. A human buying stabilizers? Must be fixing a cursed one. Drake turned slowly. A tall bounty hunter stood there, metallic armor humming softly. You're the one carrying the trembling woman, aren't you? The hunter said, eyes narrow. There's a bounty on her, and on any fool helping her. Without waiting, Drake grabbed the stabilizer and ran. The hunter fired, but Drake dodged. Knocking over crates, shots flew past his head as he dived into narrow alleys. His mind raced, not just for his own life, but for the woman still shaking, and the child waiting in the dark. He couldn't fail them. After a long chase through the filthy underbelly of the market, Drake lost the hunter. Breathless, bleeding from a graze on his arm, he made his way back to the chamber. But when he opened the door, his heart sank. The place was a mess. Furniture overturned, tools scattered. Veshi sat on the floor, bruised, but alive. Tears streaked their cheeks. They came. Bounty hunters. They took her, Veshi sobbed. I tried to stop them, but they took my mom. Drake knelt, rage boiling inside him. He failed. They had her now, the mine boss's men. If he didn't act fast, she'd be gone forever. He looked at Veshi. We're getting her back, he promised, voice cold with anger. We'll save her. I swear. Veshi wiped their tears, determination shining in their eyes. What do we do now? Drake stared into the dark tunnels ahead. Now. We fight back, and this time he wasn't going to run. The tunnels felt colder now. Veshi clutched Drake's hand tightly as they moved deeper. Their mother was gone, taken by the bounty hunters. But Drake's mind wasn't just on rescue. He was thinking about revenge. They paused at an old maintenance shaft, the air heavy with dust and the scent of rusted metal. Drake checked the scanner. On his wrist, a faint signal pulsed. He had placed a small tracker in the woman's belt earlier. It was weak, but still alive. They're moving her towards the old mine sector, he whispered. Veshi's voice was low, trembling but firm. Why would they take her back there? Drake glanced at them. Because that's where they broke her in the first place. He didn't explain further. Veshi was too young to know the kind of cruelty that existed deep in the mines. But Drake knew he had seen similar things during his service in the human wars. They continued through the tunnels. But then, the scanner beeped sharply. Another signal was closing in, fast. Drake cursed under his breath. They're tracking us too. Before he could react, a blast tore through the side wall. A bounty hunter emerged 7 feet tall, plated in black armor with glowing eyes. His voice was like gravel. You should have stayed hidden, human. Drake shoved Veshi behind a crate, pulling his old Terran energy pistol. He fired, the blue bolts sparking against the hunter's armor. The hunter laughed, stepping forward. Your toys won't help you, fleshbag. But Drake wasn't aiming to kill. He shot the ceiling beam above with a loud crash. The old metal collapsed, burying the bounty hunter in rubble. Run! Drake shouted, grabbing Veshi's arm. They sprinted through side tunnels, the child panting. Their footsteps echoed, but Drake knew time was running out. Veshi gasped. We'll never catch them like this. Drake skidded to a stop, thinking. Fast. There's another way, he muttered. He pulled Veshi into a side chamber, an old human maintenance room. In the corner, covered in cloth, stood an old hover bike, dusty but intact. Drake tore off the cover, powering it up. The engines whined weakly, then roared to life. He grinned. Still got it. Veshi climbed on behind him. Hold on tight, Drake said, and they shot forward, speeding through the tunnels like a bullet. As they rode, Drake patched into the tracker's signal. It was getting clearer. She's in Sector 7 of the mines, he told Veshi. That's the deep extraction zone. Restricted, dangerous, Veshi whispered. That's where she worked. Drake's grip tightened on the handlebars. He had a feeling the mine boss wasn't just enslaving workers. He was experimenting, turning people into tools. They reached a sealed blast door. Drake jumped off the bike, scanning the panel. Locked, but not for long. he muttered, pulling out his hacking device. As he worked, Veshi stood guard, clutching their shock weapon. The door creaked open just as heavy footsteps echoed behind them. More bounty hunters were closing in. Drake pulled Veshi through the gap, slamming the door shut. For now, they were safe. They stood at the edge of the deep mines. It was a vast underground world. Lit by pale blue lights, massive machines roared, grinding rock and ore, and in the center, Drake saw her. The woman, still trembling, was strapped to a frame of wires and glowing coils. Beside her stood the mine boss, a bloated alien with cybernetic arms and cold, dead eyes. He was barking orders to technicians. Drain her neural patterns completely. I want to replicate the control virus. He snarled. Drake's blood boiled. They're turning her into a prototype, he whispered. Veshi's eyes filled with horror. We have to stop them. Drake nodded. We will. But not head on. He spotted an old supply elevator leading to the upper scaffolds. Come on, we'll strike from above, he said, leading Veshi up the narrow path. As they climbed, Drake explained, I'm going to cause a power surge in their control systems. When I do, you run to her and disable the restraints with this. He handed Veshi a small disruptor tool. Can you do it? Veshi swallowed but nodded. I can, from above. They saw the full operation, dozens of workers, guards, and machines, but Drake focused on the main power core. He wired a small EMP charge, setting the timer. Once this goes off, the whole section will black out, he said. He looked at Veshi. Be brave. Get your mom. Veshi's hands shook, but they whispered. I won't fail. Drake activated the timer. Beep, beep. The charge exploded with a deep hum. Lights flickered, machines stuttered, alarms blared, chaos erupted. Veshi dashed down the scaffolding, heading straight for their mother. Drake leapt into the fray, drawing his energy blade. Guards attacked, but Drake moved like a whirlwind, slicing through their weapons. He wasn't just fighting, he was buying time. Veshi reached the platform. Their mother's eyes fluttered open, barely aware. Veshi placed the disruptor on the restraints. With a spark, the restraints unlocked. Mama! Veshi cried, hugging her. The woman's trembling lessened slightly, her weak arms wrapping around Veshi. Meanwhile, Drake fought his way to them, but the mine boss stepped forward, holding a heavy plasma cannon. You shouldn't have come back, human, he growled. Drake stood between the boss and the family. I'm done running, he said, blade humming in his hand. The real fight was just beginning. The mine boss towered over Drake, his heavy plasma cannon humming with deadly energy. Drake didn't flinch, even as the boss's single mechanical eye glowed red. You could have lived, human, the boss sneered. Instead, you came back for trash. Behind Drake, Veshi clung to their mother, who was barely conscious, her body still weak and twitching. Drake stood firm, energy blade in hand, the soft blue glow reflecting in his determined eyes. You broke her, Drake said, his voice low and sharp. You used her like a machine and threw her away. The boss laughed, a cruel, wet sound. She was a tool, human. I improved her. My virus made her stronger until her mind gave out. You turned her into a lab rat, Drake snapped. And for what? Power? The boss raised his cannon. For control, he said proudly. With my virus, no worker disobeys. No slave thinks for themselves. And now, thanks to her, I'll have an army of obedient bodies. Drake's grip tightened on his blade. You're not getting away with this. But the boss smiled wider. Fight me and die here. Or, his voice lowered, you can leave. Walk away, human. Take the child, forget the mother. She's broken anyway. Drake's heart raced. He could leave now, escape with Veshi, but leave their mother behind? Veshi stared up at Drake, tears in their eyes. You promised, they whispered. You said we'd save her. Drake took a breath, shaking off the offer. He wasn't built to abandon people, especially not after coming this far. Not happening, Drake said coldly. You're done using her. Without warning, the boss fired. The plasma bolt roared, searing through the air. Drake rolled aside, the heat brushing his skin. He sprinted forward, blade flashing. The boss swung a mechanical arm, slamming Drake to the ground, but Drake was fast. He sliced through exposed wires in the boss's armor. Sparks flying, the boss roared in rage, swinging again. Drake ducked and stabbed the energy blade deep into the mechanical leg. The leg buckled, but the boss grabbed Drake by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "Stupid human," the boss spat. "You think you're a hero?" Drake struggled, vision blurring, but then a sudden sharp zap echoed. Veshi, with their small shock weapon, had fired at the boss's cybernetic arm. The circuit sparked, and the boss dropped Drake. Drake coughed hard, rolling to his knees. "Good shot, kid," he gasped. The boss turned his plasma cannon toward Veshi. "Enough of this," he bellowed, but before he could fire, a soft voice whispered, "Don't hurt my child." Everyone froze. The trembling woman, Veshi's mother, stood, her legs shaky, but her eyes clear for the first time. She stepped forward, her hands raised. "I won't let you touch them," she said, her voice weak but fierce. The neural virus was still in her, but her mind was fighting it. Drake's makeshift treatments and Veshi's presence, it had stirred her back to awareness. The boss laughed mockingly. "You can barely stand, woman. What will you do?" But her gaze sharpened. She touched the broken wires of the boss's arm, her trembling hands sparking against them. Her nervous system was still charged with feedback energy. The moment she made contact, an electric surge passed into the boss's body. The cybernetics overloaded, sparks exploding from his limbs. The boss screamed, dropping to his knees, his cannon sparking dead. Drake saw the opening. He lunged forward, driving the energy blade into the boss's chest. The weapon hissed and sizzled. The boss gasped, staring in disbelief at the human before him. "You shouldn't have..." He choked, and then his body collapsed, silent and still. For a moment, there was only the hum of broken machinery. Drake stood panting. Veshi ran to their mother, hugging her tightly. "Mama!" Veshi cried. The woman smiled weakly, brushing their head gently. "My little one, you're safe." Drake knelt, checking her pulse. Her body was still unstable, too much strain. But the stabilizer he stole was still in his pouch. He injected it carefully into her neck. The trembling slowed, her breathing steadied. She whispered, "Thank you." "Human," Drake smiled faintly. "Name's Drake, and you're welcome." Above them, alarms echoed. The facility was collapsing. Drake stood. "We need to get out of here now." He helped the woman stand, her legs steadier now. Veshi grabbed their mother's hand, refusing to let go. Together, they fled through the tunnels. Behind them, the Mind Boss's empire crumbled, his experiments, his control, all gone. But Drake knew the colony wouldn't stay quiet for long. Outside, under the night sky, the stars looked clearer. Drake looked at Veshi and their mother, alive, breathing, free. But the fight wasn't over yet. "We'll get you fully cured," Drake promised. "And we'll expose what he did to you." The woman smiled tiredly. "We'll help." Together, for the first time in years, Drake felt it. Not just the thrill of surviving, but the warmth of being part of something worth fighting for. Asterisk. The walls of the mine trembled, pipes groaned overhead, and dust rained down like ash. The alarms hadn't stopped since the mine boss died, but Drake didn't wait for the ceiling to crush them. "We have to move now," he shouted. He helped Veshi's mother onto her feet. Her legs still shook, but the stabilizer was working. She could stand barely. Veshi clung to her hand, refusing to let go. Together, they ran, their footsteps mixing with the growing rumble of collapsing tunnels. Didn't make it far before the path split. One route led upward, but was blocked by fallen debris. The other sloped downward into darker, older parts of the mine. Drake cursed. "The main exit's cut off. We'll have to take the deep tunnels." Veshi looked scared. "That's where the failed machines are left." The ones that went mad, Drake nodded grimly. I know, but we don't have a choice. They entered the lower shafts. The air was cold, thick with dust and the hum of old machinery still alive in the dark. Strange shadows flickered on the walls. Half-dead mining drones twitched in the corners, rusted but still moving on broken limbs. Veshi's mother stumbled. Drake caught her. We'll rest when we're out, he whispered. But then an eerie sound echoed, metal scraping metal. A shriek like metal bending under pressure. Then the eyes cold, mechanical, glowing red. A cluster of rogue mining drones stirred awake, sensing movement. They've detected us, Drake said. The drones meant to dig rock now saw living bodies as obstacles to destroy. Their claws spun. Their drill arms buzzed to life. They're coming. Veshi screamed. Drake shoved them behind an old support beam. He fired his energy pistol, blasting the first drone apart. But there were too many. The others advanced. Relentless, keep moving, Drake shouted. He hacked at the control panel. On the wall, old human tech still buried beneath alien modifications. With sparks, the panel lit up. I'm rerouting power. Come on, he muttered. The drones closed in. Veshi held their mother tightly. Just as the first drone lunged, Drake slammed a lever. A massive bulkhead door dropped between them with a heavy crash, trapping the drones on the other side. Their angry drilling sounds faded behind the steel barrier. Drake wiped sweat from his brow. That won't hold them forever, he warned. We need to get topside fast. They pressed on, after what felt like hours. They reached a service elevator, but the control console was dead. No power. Veshi's mother touched the panel gently, her fingers trembling but glowing faintly with nervous energy. Let me try, she whispered. Her body was still affected by the neural virus. Her nerves carried unstable energy. She placed her hand on the wires. With a spark, the panel hummed alive, lights flickering weakly. The elevator groaned, but started moving. You did it, Drake said. Surprised, Veshi smiled proudly at their mother. You're amazing, they whispered. The elevator climbed, each floor creaking under strain. Drake kept his weapon ready. Finally, they emerged into the night air. The mining colony spread out before them, but something was wrong. The colony was awake. Lights flashing, ships flying overhead. Then Drake saw it, the security patrols. The mine boss might be dead, but his lieutenants still ruled, and they weren't happy. A loudspeaker echoed across the colony. Attention workers, the human Drake Lawson is a traitor. He has stolen company property. Surrender him and the defectives for a reward. Drake looked at Veshi and their mother. They're calling you property, he growled. We're not letting them win. They needed a way off the planet, but there was only one path, the old landing platform, where a handful of ships sat. Under guard. We make for the pad, Drake decided. But there's too many of them. Veshi worried. Drake smiled faintly. I've got one last trick. He opened his pouch, pulling out a small round device, an old Terran pulse emitter. It's unstable, but it'll fry anything electronic in a wide range, he explained. Unfortunately, that includes us if we're too close. Veshi's mother stepped forward. I'll carry it, she said softly. Drake shook his head. You're still weak, but I can channel its power without it killing me, she said, her voice firm. The virus in me. It still conducts energy. She smiled gently at Veshi. Stay close to Drake. I'll clear the path. Drake reluctantly agreed. Together, they approached the landing pad. The guards spotted them and raised their weapons, but before they could fire, Veshi's mother stepped ahead, holding the pulse emitter. She activated it, her body sparking, energy running down her limbs. She screamed, not in pain, but in effort. A wave of pulse energy exploded outward. Guards' weapons died, security drones crashed, and lights flickered out. The entire platform went dark. Drake and Veshi ran to her. She collapsed, drained but alive. Drake carried her onto one of the ships, a small cargo runner still intact. He powered up the controls. The engines roared to life. As the patrols tried to recover, the ship lifted off. Climbing into the sky, Veshi held their mother's hand. She did it. We made it, Veshi whispered. Drake stared out the window as the stars filled the sky. We're not done yet, he said. We'll get her fully cured, Veshi. I swear it. The colony shrank below, but the fight for freedom was just beginning. Asterisk. The cargo ship soared through the stars, but inside the cabin, silence hung heavy. Veshi sat beside their mother, holding her hand tightly. She was breathing, her body still weak, her skin pale but alive. Drake watched them while piloting. His eyes flicked to the radar, still clear, but he knew that wouldn't last. The mine boss was dead, but his corrupt empire wasn't gone. The colony's officials, the company enforcers, they would chase them across the sectors, and worse. They still had the virus tech buried in the system. If Drake didn't act now, others like Veshi's mother would suffer the same fate. He looked back at Veshi. How's she doing? Veshi wiped their eyes. She's breathing, but she's so tired. Drake nodded. We'll fix that. I promise. But he knew promises weren't enough anymore. He adjusted their course, setting a new destination, an old Terran outpost hidden deep in an asteroid field. Drake had been there once during the war, a secret lab where human scientists had experimented on cybernetics and neural tech. If anyone could help, it was there. As the ship glided into the asteroid field, Veshi's mother stirred weakly. Her voice was soft. Where are we? Safe, Drake answered. But we need to stabilize you before your body burns out. She smiled faintly. You shouldn't have come back for me. Drake shook his head. I couldn't leave you. And I'm not done yet. The ship landed on a hidden platform carved into a giant asteroid. Lights flickered weakly, but the outpost still lived. Barely inside, the place smelled of old metal and stale air. But the equipment, neural scanners, cybernetic tools, still functioned. Drake laid Veshi's mother on a diagnostic table. Machines hummed as they scanned her. Veshi stood beside her, silent but hopeful. Drake reviewed the data. The virus was still in her system, clinging to her nerves like thorns, but the stabilizer had slowed it. He needed to remove it completely. Can you fix her here? Veshi asked quietly. Drake hesitated. Maybe, but I need help. He activated the outpost's old AI. A hologram flickered an elderly human scientist. Welcome back, user Drake Lawson. Diagnostics active. Neural corruption detected in subject. The AI droned. Yeah, I noticed, Drake muttered. Can we purge it? The AI's voice buzzed. Possible. But subject's system is entangled with the corruption. Removal risks fatality unless synchronized neural mapping is performed, Drake sighed. In simple words? The AI blinked. You must link your nervous system to hers. Manually guide the virus out, Veshi gasped. Isn't that dangerous? Drake nodded. If I fail, the virus could jump into me. But it's the only way. Veshi looked terrified. But you could die, Drake smiled faintly. Not today, kid. He connected the neural link, cold pads pressed against his temples. Others placed on Veshi's mother. A sharp shock raced through him, then darkness, and then he was inside. Not in the physical world, but in her mind. It was a storm, memories, pain, lightning arcs of neural data crashing around him, and there, like a shadow, pulsed the virus, a dark mass. Thorny and alive, Drake pushed forward. He could hear faint voices, her memories, Veshi's laughter, but also her fears, the endless work, the cruel mind boss, the days of being used as a tool. He whispered, You're not a tool. You're not broken. The virus reacted like it heard him. It lunged at his presence, trying to latch on. Drake focused, picturing Veshi, the bond between child and mother. Light formed in the storm, her will, her love for Veshi. The virus shrieked, trying to hold on, but Drake pulled it away, guiding it like a tangled thread. He gritted his teeth. The pain was sharp, like needles in his spine, but slowly, the virus weakened, breaking apart under the light of her memories. Finally, it was gone, burnt away. Drake staggered back, gasping. as the neural link deactivated. Veshi's mother lay still, then her eyes opened clear, calm. Her hands no longer trembled. Veshi cried, hugging her tightly, "You're back! You're really back!" She smiled, holding Veshi close. "Yes. I'm here, little one." Drake slumped against the wall, exhausted but alive. The AI chimed, neural corruption removed. Subject stabilized. Drake chuckled. "Told you I'd fix it." But then the AI's voice darkened. "Warning, incoming. Signal detected. Company ships inbound. Estimated arrival 10 minutes. Veshi looked scared. "They found us." Drake stood, wiping his face. "Then we make a stand." He powered up the outpost defenses, old turrets, shields, and energy. "Grids, we fight them here. And we tell the galaxy what they've done." He uploaded all the data, the virus, the experiments, the Mind Boss's crimes to every frequency, broadcasting the truth. "They wanted to own you," Drake said to Veshi's mother. "But today, they'll learn humans don't leave family behind." The stars outside began to shimmer, ships arriving. But Drake stood ready, his eyes fierce, blade in hand. This was defiance. This was humanity, and he wasn't backing down. Asterisk. The asteroid base trembled again, not from malfunction, but from the fleet arriving outside. Multiple company ships hovered in the distance, their heavy cannons aimed directly at the outpost. In the control room, Drake stood tall, watching their approach on the dusty old screens. Veshi and their mother stood behind him, fear in their eyes. "They'll blast us apart," Veshi whispered. Drake's face was calm. "Not without a fight." He activated the defense grid. Rusty turrets popped out from the rock, humming weakly but ready. The outpost shields flickered alive, weak but still standing. A message crackled through the speakers, a cold, familiar voice. "Human, surrender the test subject and the child. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Stand down and die quickly." Drake chuckled dryly. "Tell them no thanks." He grabbed his old Terran rifle, loading the last energy cell. He glanced at Veshi's mother. She stood upright now, steady, her eyes sharp. Her strength was back, her body no longer trembling. "You're sure about this?" he asked her. She nodded. "They won't take me." Not again. Outside, the first cannon blast struck the shield. The room shook. Lights flickered. The defense turrets fired back. But the enemy ships were many. In the corner, the AI hummed. "Probability of survival, 3%, it said coldly. Drake smirked. "Sounds like my kind of odds." Then he remembered the pulse emitter they used earlier. If they could overload the emitter with the outpost's core, it could send a wave strong enough to disable the ships, but it would destroy the outpost too. Drake explained the plan. Veshi's face paled. "But we'd be here when it explodes." Drake knelt by them. "Not if you two get to the old emergency pod." "It's a long shot, but it might work." Veshi's mother touched his shoulder. "What about you?" Drake smiled faintly. "I'll stay and trigger the pulse." But Veshi grabbed his hand tightly. "No. You promised you'd stay with us." Their voice cracked with tears. Drake looked into their wide eyes, and for a moment, he remembered when he was young, left behind, no family, no promises kept. He shook his head. "You're right. I made a promise." Then the AI spoke. "Alternative solution available. What is it?" Drake asked quickly. "Subject's nervous system can channel the pulse, delivering it through an energy relay to the fleet without destroying the outpost. However, risk of fatal overload is 99%. Drake turned to Veshi's mother. She was already nodding. "I'll do it," she said softly. "No," Veshi gasped. "You'll die." She smiled gently, cupping Veshi's cheek. "I nearly lost myself already, little one. If I can use this cursed energy to save you, it's worth it." Drake shook his head. "There must be another way." She stopped him with a look. "There's no time. Trust me." She placed her hands on the emitter interface, her body sparking as the relay powered up. Her veins glowed faintly, her eyes shimmering with light. The fleet outside prepared their final strike. But before they fired, a pulse of brilliant energy exploded from the asteroid. It wasn't just a blast, it was a wave of light and sound. The company ships flickered, their engines sputtering, weapons going dark. One by one, the ships fell silent, powerless, drifting in space inside. The outpost, the emitter's energy faded. Drake and Veshi ran to her. Veshi's mother was still standing, but barely. Her breathing was shallow, her body weak again. Veshi held her tightly, tears falling. "You're not leaving me." "Not now." Drake checked her pulse faint, but still. "There, she's alive," he said softly. "But she needs real care," the AI confirmed. "Hostile fleet neutralized. Broadcasting data logs and evidence of company crimes across all galactic channels. Already, signals buzzed back. Other colonies, other species, seeing the truth. Outrage rippled across the galaxy. The company's grip was breaking. Drake helped Veshi and their mother to the emergency pod. The AI guided them out up to a safer zone where other ships, free ships, had begun to arrive. Rescue was coming. But the fight had been won by them, by one human, a child, and a mother who refused to stay broken. As the sun rose over the asteroid, Drake stood with Veshi and their mother, watching the stars. "What happens now?" Veshi asked. Drake smiled. "Now we live. We heal, and we make sure they can never do this to anyone again." Veshi's mother looked at Drake, her voice still weak but steady. "You saved us," she said. Drake shook his head. "No, you saved yourselves." "I just refuse to look away." Veshi hugged Drake tightly. "Your family now," they whispered. Drake's heart softened. For the first time, he wasn't just a soldier or a stray human on a hostile world. He was family, and in that moment, under the rising light of a new day, Drake Lawson smiled. Because sometimes, humanity's greatest strength wasn't war. It was the courage to stand, to fight for those who couldn't, and to never let go of hope. Asterisk.